Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this special Talks at Google virtual event. My name is Michael Carney, and I am so excited to introduce today's guest, Nicole Quinn. For background on Nicole, Nicole is a general partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners, where she focuses on consumer, fintech, and health investing. Consumer behavior, founder insights, and company brand are core in Nicole's mind. She's currently on the board of Beehive, Lightyear, Multiverse, Daybreak, Goop, Cameo, and Lady Gaga's Haus Labs. Earlier, she sourced Rothy's and Zola. She's currently an MBA from Stanford and was on the Forbes Midas Brink List. Lastly, quick disclosure that none of the following should be taken as investment advice from Nicole. Nicole, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you on stage to Talks at Google, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. And for everyone too that's watching, please feel free to drop questions into the chat. We'll get to those throughout the session. But Nicole, I'd love to just kick things off. If you could just tell us about yourself, kind of your backstory of how you arrived at Lightspeed, where you're at today, and just how you arrived here.
Yes, of course, will do. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. And you can tell by the very odd accent that I originally grew up in England, but I have an Australian dad and I've been here for 10 years. So I think my accent's all over the place. But I had an entrepreneurial dad, which is probably where I got my love and thirst for entrepreneurship and startups. And so back in the 1990s, he was building online marketplaces, mainly pharmacies around the UK and continental Europe. And I mainly learned lessons on what not to do. I actually think you learn more in life from things that, don't go as planned. And so I definitely learned a lot of lessons sort of, pre 2000 crash on what not to do in tech startups. So I studied math. I went into finance, again, pre-financial crash. So it was like an exciting thing to go to at that point. But I spent nearly a decade there between London and New York, equity research most of the time. I got to do the Facebook group on Pandora IPOs. So I really started to love big tech, I would say. But at that point, a lot of those companies were, just a fraction of where they are today. And so it was really working with them from 2 years before their IPO right through to their IPO on like, hey, how has Facebook become like the brand name that it is today? The same for Google. And that really, again, got me loving this world. So I went to a fintech startup, did angel investing, and then I actually came out to Stanford to do an MBA. And I feel like most people who do MBAs, started my own startup. And I actually pitched it to most of the VCs on Sand Hill Road, and that was how I met Lightspeed. So it was really terrific to be able to see Lightspeed from the other side of the table as a founder. And to be able to think, okay, well, what kind of partner will they really be? And to me, I felt like Lightspeed would never be a passive investor. They would really help me. They would roll up their sleeves, they would do the work. It's a little bit like going to the gym, right? If you have a growth mindset, you kind of want your muscles to be broken down and built up stronger by going to the gym. And this is like the investment version of that. And so I loved the partners there. I felt like they made me better. And so worked with them for a couple of years during business school, and then joined as a VC afterwards. And that was, gosh, about 8 years ago now.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for walking us through kind of from end to end your whole experience. I'm curious towards, your current days at Lightspeed and, first just like what excites you the most about like investing today, right? Investing at Lightspeed today, to your point around when you first were introduced to the ecosystem, like what's like really exciting in today's world in your day?
So I co-head our consumer investing group. And so I definitely do a lot of consumer, but I always say it's consumer in the broadest sense of the word. And so that means everything from consumer fintech to consumer and prosumer AI, consumer SaaS products, definitely consumer health, as well as like all your sort of typical e-commerce marketplaces,
Mhm.
social. And so where I'm spending like the bulk of my time today is definitely AI. Let's come on to that in more detail later. Um, mental health, on the board of 3 mental health companies, and just thinking about, there's been so many tailwinds for really terrific mental health solutions over the past 5 years. And so, like, what is the next tailwind area like that? Maybe it's like substance abuse, help, in marketplaces to really provide those solutions. Maybe it's more help for adolescents. And so excited to talk about some of the companies on the mental health side of things,
Yep.
as well as AI. And then great companies like Beehive. Beehive, if you guys don't know, is think of like MailChimp and Klaviyo, but for you, like really for like this generation. And so it is an incredible platform for you to build a newsletter. So my belief is that everybody should have a newsletter. Like I have one, Lightspeed has one, like Google should have one more broadly, but it also should be for like every team and for every individual. And Beehive makes it so simple to go on to start your newsletter and then to be able to like really understand your customer, be able to like, do the surveys and really understand in granular detail who your customer is. And then what the magic is that you don't have to then charge your customer. You can if you want to, you can do a subscription. But the better thing is they'll be like, okay, Michael loves golf. He's going to have a golf newsletter. And so they'll match you with folks who want to advertise on a golf newsletter. And so you will get paid to write your golf newsletter. The customers don't have to pay, and they'll just match you with the right advertiser. And it's growing incredibly quickly. So that's a really cool one. And some of the areas we love to invest in at the moment.
I'm so excited and happy you mentioned Beehive because, fun fact, I have my own newsletter through Beehive currently, so I can speak to just my experience just writing and the amazing community and just how awesome the community has been as I've kind of like dove in the deep end of writing for the first time ever and kind of putting all my experience down on paper. And I've even gone through Beehive's courses and so on. And so I also follow your newsletter quite a bit. If you want to give a quick plug to you and Faraz's newsletter, which I know you share quite regularly too through Beehive.
We did not know this about each other, so I did not even set you
Yes,
up for that. That is really great. You have a Beehive
thank you.
newsletter. I truly believe everybody should. First of all, send
Yep,
me yours because I want to see it. And yes, ours is
yep.
called Buzzworthy. So straight after investing in Beehive, which is Beehiiv, really cool spelling. Kind of similar to Google, right? It's sort of like, hey, you're just going to like create your own name, and so.
Hmm.
That's exactly what Beehive have done, and it's an incredible product. So yeah, follow me on Beehive Buzzworthy.
Definitely, I will send you mine afterwards. Would love any feedback. My newsletter or just my subscriptions too have been growing, which has been fun to see. I think you bring up a great area we can move into as well as just around mental health. Sneak preview of my next post will be around mental health and just navigating that, especially through the holidays. But you know, you mentioned mental health quite a bit, and I guess my first question for you, just knowing the companies that you've invested in, where you currently sit on the boards of, which we can cover in a second here, but how do you think technology can be really used today to just improve mental health care in that whole area?
So it's interesting. I feel like if you think about it 5, 10 years ago, we just did not think about mental health in the same way. Especially like me growing up in England, it was very much like keep calm and carry on, never talk about your problems. And that has really changed. Like I never even understood the word anxiety growing up in England. Nobody talked about it, but everybody had it. Um,
Yeah.
and so, first of all, it has been that like the tailwinds of all of that changing. And then the technology, well, where Lightspeed loves to invest is where there's a technology overlay on an existing human behavior. And so to give a non-mental health one, when we invested in Snapchat, people have been taking cheeky photos and then the next day waking up and thinking, "Oh my gosh, I wish that that was deleted." And so enter Snapchat. And it really is exactly that where we love to invest. And so Calm, for example. Folks had been, reading children bedtime stories to help them fall asleep. It is proven that bedtime stories help you get to sleep. And so having the technology overlay of someone like Stephen Fry reading to you about the lavender fields in Provence, which is, by the way, how I get to sleep every night, is really
Yep.
powerful. And it is just so helpful to be able to go to sleep without drugs, just by your favorite person talking to you about your favorite place. It's really relaxing. And so, the same thing for real. We realize that the demand in this country for therapists is so high, and it's just not scalable to think about the number of therapists. They're just not going to be able to meet that demand. And so, Real offers a much more scalable solution. So it's like saying, hey, listen, if you're an alcoholic, you go to Alcoholics Anonymous because it's clinically proven that group therapy works for people who are or have been an alcoholic. And so, why not apply that same thinking to anxiety, depression, anger? Like, it really helps folks to understand that, hey, you had anger and how did you deal with it and how does it manifest itself? Okay, that makes me feel understood and heard. It's like one of the most basic cravings that we have as a human being is to feel heard and understood. Tell my husband this every day. It really is something that Real can dramatically help with. I hope that Google offers Real at some point, and would really encourage any HR benefit folks listening to offer Real because it is a lower price point. It is a much more scalable solution, but clinically proven to reach the same results, if not better. And then the last one that I really want to talk about is through investing in these other companies, I realized that the most important thing is that we are targeting adults. But these mental health issues, complications, they start at a much younger age. They start, at like 3, 4, 5. 90% of the brain development happens before you're 5 years old. And so it really is thinking about, hey, what kind of mental health solutions can be offered to children, to teenagers? And so that's why we invested in Daybreak, which is offering schools right now, but we will definitely expand the platform to offer therapy and then again scalable solutions to younger folks. And I think that is so important. I now have children, they're only 3 and 1, but I'm constantly thinking about, the mental health solutions, that quite frankly, everybody in this country needs to some extent, and at some point in their life. So, it's really special to kind of live in this day and age when we have those solutions through technology.
I love what you just covered there, and shout out, like you mentioned, to Calm, Real, and Daybreak Health. Have to also give a huge shout out to Real, especially during the pandemic. Real was an app I was on heavily throughout that period, and being comfortable sharing that, being vulnerable and sharing that too with others. And then I use Calm daily too to just I use it also for gratitude notes and what I'm thankful for, and just how I'm feeling as sort of a check in and a light check in throughout the day as well. And I couldn't agree more with just hearing you're describing what some of the challenges mental health companies are trying to solve for. You shared a bit too about like investing in mental health startups, but any advice to founders too who are currently building in this space too as we move forward, and we're going through the holidays now, we're getting ready for the new year. Like, is there anything too that's top of mind for you as we close out the year related to mental health?
So, first of all, you know all the cool products. I love
Yeah,
it. I
yes.
need to actually get a
Yeah,
list from you after this of all the products that you actually use, like outside our portfolio, because we probably should be looking at investing in those. So, after this. Um,
totally.
so, if I was building in this space right now, I really would think about how AI can help, not just mental health,
Mhm.
but across the board in health. Um, so I think like I think our hopes and wishes for AI impacting healthcare are quite far off. Like, I feel like they have not really hit today in the same, like, dramatic way that they've helped, say, prosumer companies, right? If you look at, like, Notion, they're already doing a significant amount of revenue through their AI product in that they've
Yep.
built within Notion. Similar other companies like that. But it's like, what does that look like for health? And so for me, I think about, what AI can really do in terms of giving you the ability to understand what loved ones are going through, and really, help you be able to, create content and go through that data and be able to know, like, if, one of your friends is having a tough time. I mean, we have a huge friend graph, and one of my friends from growing up actually committed suicide last weekend. And,
Oh my God.
now hundreds of friends get together and it's like, God, why didn't we do that before? It's because we didn't know. And I really think that that is where technology is able to, show folks, hey, this friend of yours, they need your help right now. They're really struggling. These are the things that they're Googling and they really need your help. And so I would love for folks to be able to have, like, a smaller, close knit group where we're saying to one another, are you okay? Like, how are people, doing that day on like a traffic light system, for example? And so thinking about, how as a community, we can really help one another from a mental health position, but then also other areas outside mental health. I talked about substance abuse.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting marketplaces that are helping with, opioid addiction. Then we've invested in an interesting company around the post-traumatic stress disorder space. And that is a really interesting area, again, where AI can help. But for me, like, it's just, I think we've just like touched like the tip of the iceberg with
Yep.
how AI can help in healthcare. And not just thinking about it as consumer healthcare, but whether it sells to companies, whether it sells to schools, payers, consumers, like just putting it all together and thinking about what are the best solutions there. And those are the ones that we really need to be well, starting as a founder. Like, I hope that if you have any ideas in this space, I really hope that, you kind of, I think this picture behind me says like dream big dreams.
Yeah.
And so I really hope that you think, hey, listen, if my idea that I have could be the biggest it could possibly be, what would that look like? And then go out there and build it. And there's definitely investors, like myself, that really want to invest in companies like that.
Well, so sorry for your loss, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing, and I want to speak for our viewers and just our condolences, to you too, and as we close out the year, and
Thank
so
you,
on.
Michael.
I can't even imagine, Nicole, losing
And I
someone
think these are
so
the
close
toughest
like
times
that.
of the year, like this is like around
Yeah.
the holidays is unfortunately, the time where there are the highest rates of, suicide, et cetera. And so we've more than ever need to be there for friends and family around this time of year.
I love that. I think there couldn't be a better time to be hosting this talk and having this conversation too around mental health. It worked out perfectly. Just as you mentioned, like so many times you feel like you're running towards the holidays, and often now it's like you're running away just because of everything that might be going on. There's no easy way to transition, but something you mentioned too was just also talking about marketplaces, and you've had some really great thoughts and just put out a lot of amazing, words of wisdom out in the community about like marketplaces in that particular area. Like, just taking a step back of what has been your experience just investing in marketplaces, and how has that evolved too over time? I mean, you mentioned AI a little bit, but like just curious your point of view there.
So Lightspeed has been investing, gosh, for a decade or more, in incredible marketplaces, like Grubhub, on the consumer side, like Fair, on the SMB side, really helping all the many, many small shops and boutiques in this country to be able to source the very best products. Max Rhodes from Fair is an exceptional founder, who actually built the Square Cash Pay app within Square. And so when we met him really early on, we're like, wow, this is somebody who's very, very strong. And so my partner, Alex Tausig, I think he is the best marketplace investor on the street, and he creates such terrific content. I need to get him to move across to Beehive. But
Uh,
his newsletter is called Drinking from the Fire Hose, and I highly recommend it. Actually, for anybody with any kind of entrepreneurial thoughts. He goes through such detailed analysis of what investors want to see with different marketplaces at different stages of the business, how to think about like the strength of a marketplace. We love to do cohort analysis. And so it's like, okay, listen, like typically your very early cohorts are going to be your strongest because they're going to be your friends and family who are buying from you.
Mhm.
And then the cohorts will typically get a little bit worse. Maybe people are doing, smaller average ticket items or purchases, or they may be buying a little bit more infrequently. But then what we want to see is that the cohorts start to get better and better as people say, wow, this is a marketplace that I absolutely love and trust and I want to come back to time and time again. And so for me, gosh, I think I started on Instacart with like one a month. And now I'm on there like every 2 days, which is
Yeah.
again a factor of having kids. They always need extra little things. I'm so grateful for that marketplace. And they've done some pretty special things. Like sometimes I think introducing a subscription as part of that
Mhm.
marketplace is very smart for a particular business. And so for Instacart, saying, okay, no delivery fees, you've got to pay $100 a year, but then no delivery fees. Well, that's really smart. Same with DoorDash. And so it just captures me in there. And I think, well, why would I even go down to the supermarket because I'm not even paying a delivery fee, even though they do mark up like 100% on chicken, for example, and 50% on bananas. But you
Yeah.
don't think about that because you're getting free delivery. So we like to be very analytical around the marketplaces that we invest in. And yeah, highly recommend Alex Tausig's Drinking from the Fire Hose.
So many great recommendations and companies to follow. So you mentioned we talked about mental health. Giving an example of two of Instacart, but like also just double clicking a little bit into that. How do you think marketplaces in particular can be used to just disrupt maybe existing technologies and existing sectors there too?
I would say across the board. I mean, even as you think about a lot of these mental health solutions, a lot of them were
Yep.
marketplaces that help with
Mhm.
therapists. And so there's no need for the companies to, have 1099 employees. Instead, it makes much more sense for it to be like a marketplace and connecting us to therapists. And then, one of the big unlocks for Headway, for example, was really when they allowed insurance, right? That was instead of me
Mhm.
having to pay $200 to see a therapist. Okay, great. Well, 95% gets covered by the payer. And so I only have to pay $10 a session. Like that is a really powerful model. And so, yeah, we do kind of think about two-sided or three-sided marketplaces. With Fair, for example, it is like, the boutique and the brand and the
Yep.
customer. And so we've got to think about that. And that's also why marketplaces are so difficult to build in the early days. It is capital intensive. That's why VC dollars are so important in marketplaces. Because you compare it to like e-commerce, for example, e-commerce, like you could take maybe $1, $2 million or no capital ever, and you could really build a massive e-commerce business that is also profitable. Marketplaces, that's near to impossible. It would take a really long time. And so you do need a lot of that VC investment upfront. And over time, your CAC does decrease in marketplaces, as opposed to e-commerce, where typically the CAC increases over time, or consumer subscriptions, where sort of stays flat and slightly increases. But marketplaces, it does decrease because of that word of mouth, because of the way that it grows so virally. We love the network effects that are associated with
Yep.
marketplaces. So, those are some of the areas I would say in mental health and food delivery, in the retail business like Fair, that we get really excited about. And even Zola, for example, what happened during the pandemic when everybody suddenly stopped doing weddings and they were not using Zola during that time. Well, Zola had built an incredible marketplace for their household goods. And so people
Yep.
just started shopping there. And that is what, really helped that business to grow. And, now we're back to having weddings again. So great. You've got the wedding marketplace and the homeware marketplace. And so, yeah, we're on the board of that company and really love it.
Like the amount of weddings that invitations that came through and just after the pandemic and so on is just I think of Zola so much because of just yeah how many weddings I have to attend and traveling to these days. And you totally read my mind. I was going to ask your thoughts about like the network effects and how that affects marketplaces, but you just described it perfectly across some of those business, some of those examples with Fair and Zola, and how that really just leads to exponential growth through network effects, essentially.
By the way, you're getting
So
a lot of wedding invites because people are because you've got a lot of friends, Michael. That's exactly
yeah,
why.
yeah,
Not everyone's getting so many
that
wedding invites.
it's true. It's true. It's a good problem to have, right? And just trying to manage the calendar these days, and so on. Uh, Speaking a bit too, you mentioned Snapchat earlier as well, and I think it's such a great tie-in to the mental health aspect, as well. And we're chatting a bit about something that's been so much on top of everyone's mind, social media, right, and so on. And how does that maybe affect like mental health and just um, a bit of a broader question, but like, what are your thoughts on just the future of social media kind of moving forward, and like, yeah, and how it's impacted your own thoughts in investing even too?
Yeah, of course. So social's really interesting, and we have done a lot of analysis at Lightspeed on the social space. So social really goes in waves. And so,
Mm,
you have well, pretty much everything I would say in technology really goes in waves, right? And so it's sort of like you have like the internet boom, then you have the one around mobile, and we're going to talk about that in a second with regards to social. And now you have AI, which we'll come back to. So between the years of like 2007 and 2012, during that mobile wave, when you really saw the app store be developed and so many different apps pop up, and people didn't have necessarily at that point all of their different like home screen apps. Right now it's like we have our home screen apps, we know what's there. It's so hard to have home screen displacement, as we like to call it. It's like, listen, like, if you're kind of using your Gmail app and your Google Calendar, Google Maps, and that you guys are like my entire bottom row,
oh
um
gosh, good to know.
then
Good to know.
then it's so difficult for that to be displaced. In fact, COVID was a time where that was, because suddenly you're moving Uber off your home screen app. You're moving Lyft off because you're not really taking those anywhere. And so there was an
Mm,
opportunity for new ones to come on. And that was why apps like Clubhouse, apps like Be Real suddenly were not just being used, but right there on your home screen app every single day. And so I often think out of sight, out of mind. If you're not looking at it every day, you're not going to use it every day. But people were seeing it every day on their home screen app, and they were thinking, I'm kind of bored at home. I've got more time. So I'm going to go onto
mhm,
Clubhouse. And we just saw such a meteoric rise during COVID. Um, but unfortunately, it didn't have the staying power. Now, what is different now slash even during COVID versus that wave? Well, again, during that wave of 2007, 2012, there are not those other opportunities. And so the social media apps took away from other areas, right? So we only have a certain number of hours in our day. So where does the social media app come from? Well, it actually took the place of cable television. And so,
mhm.
the sort of unbundling of cable television, people would spend on average about $100 a year on cable. Well, we're taking that out, and that gives us $100 a year in extra disposable income to spend on, $10 for Calm, $10 for Netflix, $10 for, Apple Television, and then um, far more of these other apps that we really do have the money to spend on and the time to spend on it, most importantly. But then during COVID, there was nothing that time was coming from. That time was coming from maybe commute time, maybe the fact you weren't seeing your friends. And so as soon as we went back to seeing people in real life, well, you just didn't necessarily need Clubhouse anymore. And do you need Be Real? Well, it's fun, it's cool, but hey, I've been using Snapchat for the last 7 years. I'm going to go back to using Snapchat. And so that's why social has been so difficult over the last few years, and why we haven't invested as much in social. But, and it's a big but, I think now is different. Now is
Mhm.
different because of this AI wave. I think that this new technology really is creating new opportunities for products that are so superior to what we previously had just on mobile. And so that's why you're seeing not just OpenAI, ChatGPT, but also Character, for example. character AI to me is like the future of fun, the future of entertainment. And people are taking away from other areas to spend their time and their hard-earned money to some extent. I'm sure, they'll monetize more in the future, but right now, it's pretty much a free, incredible platform that folks can go onto and talk to any character that they want through AI. And so for me, that is a version of social. There's other really cool social apps that we've been looking at, like Can of Soup, for example, which, will say, okay, let's do Michael in the most crazy Halloween outfit. You can look at yourself in like all these different Halloween outfits. It's just, AI generated and really amazing images. So I think you can tell I can talk on this subject for a long time. But yes, the AI wave is going to be dramatically different for social and pretty much every sector.
It's everywhere, right? And well, first, just I know our community and Googlers will absolutely love that you have so many Google products on your home screen there, as you mentioned, like the calendar, Gmail. Maybe another time when we chat, we'll just see how much more we'll continue to take up space on
Oh,
Nicole's
I
home
have a
screen.
lot more. Nest, Ring.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you are, yes, you are hands down becoming a favorite of our talks, guests and so on. Also, I know you mentioned with the mobile side of things, I recently started using Yeasay, which is another Lightspeed a portfolio company. And even I noticed I try to be the best son in the world. I've shopped for my mom with some of the discounts and stuff, and she's like, I'm getting all these amazing deliveries from Yeasay. Like, what is this company that you've been ordering from? But there's a really cool social component where you can kind of see other shoppers that are sharing on the app and seeing like discounts and stuff coming through. And I've trying to be the best son in the world, Nicole, and trying to like spoil my mom through getting ready for the holidays. So
I think you're winning. I think you are there. Best son in the world. Michael, I like it.
I'm trying to get there.
Good plug for
We're
you
getting
today.
closer. Yes, yes, a great plug. And you've written so much too about social and then to mention products and brands. I'm curious your perspective too on like what will the impact of social be kind of on brands moving forward, right? On those companies and kind of how they see maybe even social.
So Yeasay is a really great example, actually.
Yeah.
Let's come back to that in just a second because it's interesting as we think about physical products. There was obviously that huge wave of D2C or DNVBs,
Yep.
digitally native vertical brands. I guess what years was that? That was like 2016 to 2020, I would say. And all of those direct to consumer brands were essentially treated on tech multiples. And we invested in companies like Rothy's when they just had like 1 million in revenue. And what was fascinating was they did like 2 million their first year, 30 their second year, 100 their third year, 300 their fourth year. And so even if whether you're treated on a tech multiple or not, some of those companies just really reached significant scale because they were just loved products and they really had done an incredible job of hitting, I would say, like millennials and Gen Zs on the values that they really cared about. Like, why would we need to wear, any other shoe when we can wear like a plastic recycled bottle that is really helping the environment, but also one that is incredibly comfortable? It's like a hug for your foot. It's like wearing a sock on your foot. And so then when they went into, other materials and bags, it was great because, it really kind of worked for folks' values. And that was a big thing, I would say, in terms of the physical products back then. Then we needed to think about, okay, well, all of the different social products, Instagram, etc., changed everything for these brands because it really meant that they were able to find scalable, repeatable marketing channels, and that to us is so key in any kind of product. And listen, like, yes, you could like advertise on Pinterest, but maybe there's sort of a ceiling. Whereas like Instagram, Facebook, you can spend many, many millions. I have companies that
Mhm.
spend 200 million a year advertising on Facebook/Instagram. The same with Google. Like the ceiling is so high. And so they then found these scalable, repeatable marketing channels. They could build these businesses into multi-billion dollar businesses, and there were exits, like the sort of Dollar Shave Clubs and the Jets of the world. And so social dramatically helped. But the issue is that the algorithm on Facebook changed, all the sort of, 14, iOS 14 changes on the data side of things. And so suddenly it was much more expensive to acquire a customer. The unit economics
Yep.
didn't work so well. And so we're now constantly thinking about what are the new channels that these products can grow. Yasay is a really great one, which marries, social and discounts together, everything that customers love, into just a really fun user experience. I highly recommend it. Yasay, Y-A-W, and then S-A-W. Sorry,
Like it,
Y-A-Y-S-A-Y.
all good.
And
All good.
it's just a really cool product. And then I would just say, yeah, that's exactly the kind of direction that people are going. It's like, hey, influencers, maybe that can be a scalable, repeatable marketing channel. And so we need to be thinking about whether it's your friends recommending or influencers recommending
Hmm.
or getting discounts through Yasay, but also seeing what your friends slash community are buying. That's a big direction that I think physical products, what the world is moving.
Incredible. Well, I know we only have a bit more time left, and there's so much more we could cover, and we've got some great questions that are coming also through in the chat. I guess to maybe close us out a little bit around AI, as you mentioned and talking so much there, you covered a bit already, but like, are there do you have any thoughts too on just the future of kind of consumer and AI, as we move into these next few years where it feels like AI is just going to continue to be at the forefront of everything in our worlds.
Yes. So I think on the prosumer side, I'm wildly excited
Mm.
because we've invested in a company called Tome, Tome. And for me, I don't know why anybody builds, a deck or any kind of, sort of digital product like that on anything other than Tome now. It's just such a great user experience. And the AI just means you can do it in like half the time. And so, like, pulling up, like, what does this mean? Well, AI essentially is just making everything we do a little bit easier, a little bit faster. And so, if I'm sitting down to write my Beehive newsletter, like before ChatGPT and the world of generative AI really took off, might have taken me like 5 to 10 hours to write that. Um, Now I can get that written in like a couple of hours. And so, wow, I'm getting like 3 to 8 hours back in my day. Well, that's pretty special. And so it's almost like a customer is like woken up and won the lottery of time because they now can actually make money through those other areas, but they're being able to do them faster and they're getting time back in their day. So you're getting more money and you're getting more time. And so it's like, what do you do with that? Well, they then think that we will spend that extra time on new interesting areas. So I think we'll spend it on social, hence my bullishness around social AI. I think we will spend that on more travel, more experiences. I would say like some of the travel marketplaces like Expedia have tried to add an AI offering, but it's pretty limited now to like an AI version of like customer support.
Yep.
But, like, if we really think big, like, what could that look like? Well, that actually could be huge, in terms of, like, the travel itineraries and understanding what, like, the very best travel experience, and instead of spending, like, 50 hours planning a trip, it can be done for you, and you're spending, like, an hour just reviewing the data and information. And so we're wildly excited about what AI does, yes, for fintech, enterprise, I would say we're investing in significantly right now. I'm not sure whether folks saw, but the information this morning on the Biden's executive order, just essentially injecting like a degree of certainty into the debate around like the guardrails for AI. And what this just means is that there is going to be more government oversight around advanced
Hmm.
AI projects. And so we as a result, we'll probably be investing far more so in like, AI security and that whole world. And so at Lightspeed, we've invested in 53 companies over $1 billion in AI. Um,
Wow.
And you should certainly expect that to continue. That wasn't all just this year. We definitely
Yep.
invested before the generative AI world.
Yep.
But for us, like, we're going to be significantly investing because we just think that whether it be on the enterprise side, security, prosumer, healthcare, fintech, consumer, that whole space, it's changing the landscape.
Completely. I also feel like I just got some great writing tips on how you go about shaving, like, 10 hours of writing into like maybe five or even like, a third of that now. So thank you, because that's been a bit of a challenge just figuring out how do, where is the time to be able to write and put down some deeper thoughts. Couldn't agree more with Tome. I love Tome. I use Tome regularly now too when I'm creating invites, even recording and giving a little bit of a speak over on like an invite page too. Tome's just been so incredible. For the sake of time, just because we do have a few questions too, but I also just wanted to also focus a bit on your amazing support within the female founder community and all the amazing work you've done. I listed off a few portfolio companies too, that are female founder led, and just want to recognize that, and just get your thoughts too on like, can you speak a little bit more about your work, and then are there any resources you recommend for female founders too that they can utilize, and so on, and just things that you follow and lean in with.
This is such an important topic for me. I strongly believe that the best decisions get made when you have diversity around the table. And yes, that's diversity of gender, but it's also diversity of opinions, experience, background, socioeconomic. And so for us, like, that is what is so key. And that's the best decisions around a VC table, the best decisions at a boardroom table. Like any kind of, a Google decision making table. And so what does that mean? What does that mean? We have to kind of make these changes. Well, for us at Lightspeed, it's like, don't try and make changes externally before you do it internally. And now
Mm,
more than a third of our investors are women. We have 11 incredible female investors just in the US and Europe, more in India and China, um, and Israel. And so for us, like, we've made those changes. And then, we've made a lot of really terrific changes internally around everything for like the working mother to making sure they're really supported. But then for our portfolio companies, what we were doing is we asked them to sign a letter. And we said, in this letter, you commit to, for every board member or senior hire that you make, you consider all underrepresented minorities. And so them signing this means that they're not going to say, oh, I played golf with this guy and, I want to bring him in, which generally results in you hiring a person like yourself, and all these sort of unconscious biases that we have. And so as a result of like consciously saying, I will consider all underrepresented minorities, you are going to make sure, that the pipeline is so much stronger and the very best candidate gets the job. And so those are some of the things that we've done both at Lightspeed, but also for our 800 portfolio companies. And it is really important. And then with regards to your question around like advice for female founders, that the only advice that I would say that's separate to female founders is, again, like this idea around like think really big. Because
mhm,
one change that we noticed is that when guys give their projections for like, the sort of 3-year plan of what their startup's going to do, typically they don't hit those numbers. And VCs know they're not going to hit those numbers. And so you have to sort of discount them like 30% a year. But that's still great because they've kind of said to you they're going to grow like 10x a year. Whereas like
yeah.
the female founders, and also, by the way, it's also geography as well. Like I find European founders, this is true of as well, will be much more conservative and will say, we believe we're going to grow 2.5x a year. And then they consistently come in above that, growing 3x, 3.5x a year. And so I would just say think big, because sometimes VCs are going to discount those projections when we sort of build our own model. So we just want you to say, hey, if everything goes right, how big can this possibly be?
Mm,
And what does that mean for this idea I have, for this business I'm building? Like, how big an opportunity could it be? And so that is really the advice that I would give for female founders. And we're really starting to see that. I actually have noticed a huge change in that, even just in the last few years, which has been terrific to see. So excited to see more of that.
Incredible. I know we're almost at time. We have a great question too. You've been on such an incredible journey. Since joining Lightspeed and then investing in the female founder community, supporting mental health companies, consumer-led brands and companies as well with a focus on AI. We get a question a lot. Oftentimes, this one's from Simone, but any advice for folks who are just new to investing? What are some of the things we should keep top of mind as we start up ourselves, right? As maybe even individuals.
I am so glad you asked this question. Folks usually say to me, like, how do I get into VC? And my answer to that is like, act like you're a VC before you're a VC.
Mm,
And like what that means in practice is exactly this question, which is like, okay, so even if you don't want to go into VC, like having investing on the side is a great idea because if you live in Silicon Valley or any of other of the great hubs that are producing these incredible companies, and if you're at Google and you're able to say, oh, I worked with Gnome and now he started Character AI, and I had the opportunity to be able to invest in him or any other folks at Google, my gosh, take that opportunity. So I would say advice that I would have is definitely invest, definitely do some angel investing, maybe bring together like an angel investing syndicate. And so investing, whatever it may be, 25K, 50K, but then maybe, putting together like a Google syndicate. I think that some folks from Twitter did this, and they called it #angels. And so it'd be cool to see the same in terms of a Google angel syndicate, because when you come together as a group, you can then say, okay, great, now we're going to invest say 500K between the 10 of us, and then we'd love to make an impact in this business, and have a real voice at the table. And so would love to see you guys doing more in terms of angel syndicates. And then maybe someone can blog about what they're doing. Like again, like this could be like Google Angels Beehive newsletter to, end where we started off, and
yeah.
then talk about the companies you invested in. Because if you send that to VCs like Lightspeed, I'm going to be like, wow, this is a really great company. I might not have met this if it wasn't for you. And now I'd love to lead the Series A, and then we can put like 20 million behind your investment on a much higher valuation. So again, that's great for you
Yeah.
guys. And so, yeah, make sure to like send that newsletter out, maybe go to conferences, meet people that way, network. But yeah, great question.
Such great advice to end on and so on. Like I said, I wish we had more time because there's so much great knowledge and just experiences you've shared today with this community, Nicole. Before we hop off, I do have a quote that I've heard you speak to that I follow, and almost might as well have on like kind of my wall of inspiration. But and it's for anyone who wants to see, it's on Nicole's LinkedIn, the top of your profile as well. So we have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. And any last words there, Nicole, on just what that quote means to you and how you use that in your life today?
That quote is very ironic given I just spoke for the last 48 minutes.
Hey, it's perfect. It's
But
perfect.
honestly, I never speak like this, right? So usually my entire day looks like 20 different meetings, 20 half an hour
Yeah.
meetings, longer for board meetings. And I sit there and I just try to really ask sort of more deep philosophical questions to better
Mhm.
understand who that founder is. And, I hope I'm never talking more than 5% of the time, because I think you learn so much more from what you listen to and truly hear, right? There's a difference between just listening and then really hearing what someone's saying. It's sort of like
Mhm.
reading between the lines. And so I like to live my life hearing what people are saying, far more than talking.
Well, we had to flip it today because you're our guest. So, but it's great words to live by. And Nicole, we just want to thank you so much for joining today's session and just speaking on such amazing topics and such important subjects for us on the Google side and just for our listeners. So, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Michael. Bye.
Um, Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's talk. with us on the Google side. And again, a very big thank you and shout out to Nicole for hopping on for today and sharing such amazing words of wisdom. So, awesome, everyone. Well, take care.